And very good evening to you and a warm welcome to the Turning Point for ITN Sri Lanka. And Turning Point carries on with important people with important messages and important analysts of various issues that affect you, the people of the country. And today is no different. We have with us Mr. Mahesh Senanayake, who is the chief organizer for the Ranil Wickremesinghe campaign from Yatinura. That's up in the hills in Kandy. Good evening, Mahesh, and thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me here.
And Mahesh, of course, is no stranger to ITN Sri Lanka. He's pretty much grown up here. He's part of the foundation and all the buildings out here because this is where he grew up, as he told me. So, Mahesh, you're a bit of a media personality and so on. But what drove you to choose to back Ranil Wickremesinghe?
Well, I think he's the only statesman this country has right now who can see that the future of the nation will be kept intact, and he's the only person who actually saw the predicament that the country would have to suffer unless we gather together and rescue the country when the worst economic meltdown we have ever experienced, ever seen.
As we've gone back, we'll come back to this economic stability of some sort of sorts. But before that, you know, when Gotabaya Rajapaksa was getting panicked and he wanted to leave, he asked, we are told, he asked a whole lot of people, including the likes of General Fonseca, Anukumara, Sajid Premadasa, and I think also the Speaker. Now, they all refused. What would have happened constitutionally? Was the country just going to, go down the route of anarchy, burning and all sorts of things? And who would have been in charge of the rule of law, for example?
Well, as far as I know and as per what I have read and what I have learned, it would have been the opposition leader's responsibility, and it should be the opposition leader's responsibility because you have an opposition leader in parliament that is to take responsibility when the government collapses. So you cannot find pretext and say that I was not invited, I was given conditions, etc., etc., etc. So at that occasion, the current opposition leader and now a candidate of the SJB, Mr. Premadasa, did not show up or did not accept the challenge. And I know it's quite rhetoric and it's quite an irony that a man with one seat with ridiculed vote base of 245,000 in parliament, then he took up the challenge. When I said ridiculed, I mean if there is a person, an individual who ridicules and who frowns upon those 245 valuable votes of the UN purse should regret today for doing that, because those 245 votes ensured that the country was saved.
But the country ended up with the leader.
Sorry?
The country ended up with the leader, somebody to take it on.
Yeah.
And as a result, I don't need to point out that we didn't go the route of Kenya, nor did we go the route of Bangladesh. I think these people, our protesters, were stopped in sight of Parliament, which is absolutely amazing because Sri Lanka doesn't usually go down that far. The LTT notwithstanding. But there you go. Once again, because I just mentioned the LTT, not many people acknowledge Ranil Wickremesinghe's role in the ending of the war, because it all seems to be heaped on Mahinda Rajapaksa. I'm not taking anything away from him or from Sajid Fonseca. But no one talks about the crossover of Karuna to the Colombo side, if you like.
Well, this is a question even we have asked from our leader many times, but we later realized as a statesman, as a real patriot, he never wanted to use his political expediency to get credit on that at that occasion. Even today, he does not elaborate or comment on what he did in 2005. You would remember, he had a government which was duly elected by the people, and he had a mandate. UNP had a mandate. It was UNF had a mandate for 5 years, but there was some kind of political coup, and 3 ministries were taken by the then president CBK, and his government was toppled. At that time, he could have easily fought with the executive president because he had so much of backing, like the so-called Dinapanas Dekar.
Yes.
But he never wanted to do that. Later, after 10 or 15 years, I can remember, he mentioned that he never wanted to fight back, because had he fought back with the executive president as the prime minister, that could have completely already polarized situation and divided the nation, and would have given the advantage to the LTT at that time.
So when we've had people, potential leaders, pseudo leaders even, who ran away, who didn't take the responsibility, we had this lone elephant, Ranil Wickremesinghe, come forward, and he said, look, I'll do it. But obviously I need to have support from Parliament, otherwise, can't do. So fine, he came, he did. We have no queues, we have availability of fuel and gas, and in my travels over the last 8 months or around, the underlying message is, yes, we have fuel, we have gas, we don't really use much gas, but we have it. There's availability of food, children go to school, but the high cost of living is unbearable. You're backing Ranil Wickremesinghe. What is difference between Ranil Wickremesinghe's manifesto and his promises or his undertakings from those of Sajid Premadasa, Anurakumara Dissanayake, Nama Rajapaksa, and everybody else? So what's different?
Well, as a country, we fail because we have a heavy public debt.
Yeah.
And we have not been able to meet our expenditure by earning our own money or own wealth or own assets to pay back our debts and run the country.
Right.
And on the other side, we have not been able to, or we were not able to export as many products or services as possible to outnumber the amount of things that we bring from outside, which you call the twin deficit. One is the fiscal deficit, which is the difference between the government expenditure and the government earnings, and on the other hand, the balance of payment, which leads to a deficit, and balance of payment again paves the way for a deficit in the current account. So Mr. Wickremesinghe's manifesto hinges on these two factors. He brings solutions to resolve these two factors, the twin deficit, whereas I don't see any other candidate has addressed this issue. They would have probably come up with quite decorative language, but they are not quite honest and straightforward in their statement, because they don't know a way to address this issue. Because, I mean, see, for example, now expenditure and earnings is a big challenge. Mr. Wickremesinghe had to impose taxes because we had to ensure that our primary account has a surplus. So this factor needs lengthy discussion and needs a lot of acumen, a lot of insights, a lot of deliberations to address. But I don't see these candidates have done that. All I see is that this country missed one time, that was regaining Sri Lanka, which was the manifesto of then young Ranil Wickremesinghe in 2001, because of the political coup which I mentioned a while ago. So all these manifestos now based on regaining Sri Lanka. Just imagine for us, you as a senior journalist, you're aware of what I'm saying very well. Had this country had leaders who did not topple that regaining Sri Lanka in 2001, 2004, this country would have been a different country today.
So in a different space.
Yes.
But Mahesh, don't you see that Ranil Wickremesinghe has constantly asked for people, the opposition, to join him in this forward march to take Sri Lanka to the next step? We've got economic stability, whether you like it or not, it's there. And he's renegotiated the loan payments to give us a bit of breathing space. He's been pretty prudent, I suppose, along with the Treasury Secretary and the Governor of the Central Bank. We've got $5.6 billion in reserves. His calls for unity, for others to join him, seems to have fallen on deaf ears.
Yes.
What's the problem, really?
I think some of the leaders are quite immature, and they were not interested in seeing that the country was safe, or they would contribute to a situation to create a safer nation for the people of this country. Because why I'm saying so is, like, we have gone through a lot of critical junctures in the past, from independence in 1948 to 83 insurrection, 71 before that, then 1977 open economy, 83 insurrection, 88, 89 chaotic period, then the war, etc. But in these critical junctures, the leaders of political parties did not come together for obvious reasons. But during those 75 years, we had never experienced a bankrupt status. So this was a bankrupt status, and which was known to everyone, especially the main protagonist in Sri Lanka's political landscape knew that. And I really regret that these leaders, so-called leaders, I would say, did not want to support Ranil Wickremesinghe for that. But anybody who would have got elected at that time, because simply that they couldn't draw the line, because he would have been, I mean, the person who was elected was from a different political
But Ranil
camp.
Wickremesinghe was already warning about the need to go to the IMF, because he could see what was coming. The fact that Gotabaya Rajapaksa initially sort of pooh-poohed him away, and the others, does that indicate that we have in Sri Lanka the executive presidency, which is far too powerful?
Well, yeah, it's debatable. I think we have spoken a lot on this, whether we should abolish executive presidency, whether we should clip his wings, which in fact happened in 2015, as you know, during the presidency of Excellency Maithripala Sirisena, 6 years to 5 years, the 19th Amendment, and so on and so forth. I think these are the pertinent topics that the public should be aware of, and we should come and talk on these platforms, because we have heard abolition of executive presidency, but we have not quite questioned ourselves why we need it or why we don't need it.
But also, Mahesh, there seems to be a concerted effort on the part of the opposition, mainly, to ignore the economic stability that was returned to the country, the return of the rule of law, a system where the country was able to welcome back its tourists, a system where the country was able to restore some of its frayed diplomatic relationships and so on, and some monumental blunders like, absolutely annoying the Arab world with the flawed cremation policy on Muslims. So there not enough people are appreciating how serious is the potential to go back to those days where we had to queue for petrol, where we didn't have gas, and where even food security was an issue.
Yeah, well, as I told you, that a bankrupt nation was never in our dreams.
Yeah.
And it was quite a nightmare which became a reality.
Yeah.
What we need to understand is that we have just raised our head from bankruptcy, but it doesn't mean that everything is all right. What Mr. Wickremesinghe did, was, the incumbent president, is to ensure that the country can run on a daily basis, and people of the country, people of the nation, can live without many an issue on a daily basis, on a day-to-day, in their day-to-day lives. But we have an uphill task in the next 5 years, that is to address our debt issue. We need to expand our economy. We need to pay our debts, and also meet our recurrent expenditure, because we are a welfare society. So if we do not elect a person who understands this perspective, and also a person who is able to do this, capable to do this with experience, we will definitely go into trouble. What worries me is that
let's go back. Sorry to cut you in midstream. Time to go for a quick break. This is the Turning Point for ITN Sri Lanka. We're with Mahesh Senanayake from Yatinura, the organizer there for the RW camp. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
ගුණ පරපුරක සහතිකය ඇංකර්.
බෙස්ට් එවර් සන්ලයිට් රුපියල් 70කින් මිලාඩු කළා. දැන් රුපියල් 380ක් පමණයි.
සුසින්ද සමක් විෂබීජවලින් ආරක්ෂාවක් සහ නැවුම් සුවඳක් ඩෙටෝල් ස්කින් කෙයාර්.
ශ්‍රී ලාංකීය කොණ්ඩෙටම සුවිශේෂී කුමාරිකා හෙයා ඔයිල් මේ හැම ස්වභාවික අමුද්‍රව්‍යකම පෝෂණය ඔබේ හිස කෙස්වලට ලබා දෙනවා.
සොබා ගුණයෙන් පෝෂණීය කෙස් කලලුකට කුමාරිකා හෙයා ඔයිල්.
නව බෙස්ට් එවර් සන්ලයිට්. පෙරටත් වඩා සුවඳක් සමගින් සුපිරි සේදුමක්.
වීව එකතුණු උකුතේ එකක
රස උපරිමයි.
බුද්ධිමත් ඇගේ තීරණය ප්‍රීමා ස්ටෙලා. අපි හැමෝම කැමති.
ලක්ස් කියන්නේ සබන් ගැටයක් විතරක් නෙවෙයි. සමට සංකාරයක්. නව ලක්ස්.
ඔයා ෆියුචර් රෙඩි වෙන්න ඕන. ඒ වෙනුවෙන් මම හැමදාමත් ඔයත් එක්ක.
අවුරුදු 6ත් 11ත් අතර දරුවන් සඳහා වැදගත් පෝෂ්‍ය පදාර්ථ 24ක් අඩංගු සස්ටජන් ජූනියර්.
ද්විත්වාරක්ෂාවක් දෙන නව ක්ලෝගාඩ් නැචරල් සෝල්ට්.
සොබා ගුණයෙන් පෝෂණීය කෙස් කලලුකට කුමාරිකා හෙයා ඔයිල්.
ෆෙම්ස් ඇය ගැනන ඇයවෑ සහනය. ට්‍රයිටෙක් සහ කොටන් වර්ග දෙකම ඉහළ ප්‍රමිතියට දැන් දැරිය හැකි මිලකට. ඇය එක්ක ඇගේ ඇයවෑ ප්‍රශ්න ඉවරයි.
Let's fire it up.
Introducing Prima Kottumi Korean Ramen.
Let's fire it up.
පස්සාකාරයකින් ඔබට උපකාරී වේ.
හැමදාම බොන තේ එක දැන් තවත් රසවත්.
නවෑන්ලින්.
රට හදන්න හදන ආර්ථික ප්‍රතිපත්ති ආචාර්ය බන්දුල ගුණවර්ධන ගාමිණී වලේබොඩ මහාචාර්ය ප්‍රසන්න පෙරේරා මහාචාර්ය ජනක් කුමාරසිංහ සුධර්මන් සමක තුලාව අද රාත්‍රී 10:30ට
යම්මන යනකම් පොය විකාර පොටක් නවත්තලා ඉන්නකො සේනි ප්‍රථමස්කෝ විකාරයි පෙන්නන්න බැරි
මෙයාට වෙන ගෑණියෙක් මෙයාගෙන් ඒ ගෑන්ට ළමයෙකුත් හම්බෙන්නේ
වාසි ඔබ කතාවක් අහලා නැද්ද බල්ලොත් එක්ක läග්ගම බලු මැක්කොත් එක්ක නැගිටින්න වෙනවා කියලා අපිට දැන් වෙලා තියෙන එක
සීමාවෙන් එහා හරි දේ කතා කරන්න.
මේ ඉරිදා කතා පහ අමාත්‍ය ජනාධිපති නීතිඥ අලිසා ප්‍රියසමකේදී
ති සමග පත්තරින් එහා.
ඇල්පිටියේ ඡන්ද දිනය. රනිල් හෙළි කරන රැකියා ලක්ෂය. සජිත් කියන 21 ජය ගන්න කෙනා. නාමල්ගේ සැලුම් දොර. 350කට ලැබුණු නිදහස. අඳුරු කරගත් බංගලාදේශය. දෙස් විදෙස් පුවත් රසක් සමගින් හමුවෙමු සවස් 6:30 අපගේ ප්‍රධාන ප්‍රවෘත්ති විකාශයක් සමගින්.
And welcome back to the Turning Point for ITN Sri Lanka. My guest, no stranger to ITN, Mahesh Senanayake, who's a media personality and the chief organizer for the Yatinura area for President Ranil Wickremesinghe, candidate Ranil Wickremesinghe. So, not enough people really. Do you think when you're, on ground level in Yatinura, are people, do they appreciate the fact, do they recognize the fact that the others didn't want to, couldn't or whatever, and only one man came forward? In my book, because we are this predominantly Buddhist country, and we are multicultural and we respect all religions. And all religions, I believe, teaches you to be grateful.
Yeah, yeah.
And if somebody is ignoring this fact, to me, that's ingratitude, whichever way you look at it.
Right. My answer, in a nutshell, is that people are so grateful, and we see absolute support towards Mr. Wickremesinghe, especially a segment, the daily wage earners, and pardon me for saying this, the low income earners. Unfortunately, we have that segment existing in this country.
Unfortunately, we are not exactly, we are an emerging economy.
Yes. So these low income earners are fully with Mr. Wickremesinghe, because they were the people who were most affected during COVID, during economic meltdown. For example, public sector didn't have an issue of their salaries being cut or deducted, etc. But these people, especially the daily wage earners, in sophisticated language they say informal sector in the economy, were the most affected. So they're quite grateful because Ranil Wickremesinghe, president, came forward and brought in very quick measures to address the situation, which was catastrophic and unfair. Why I say unfair? Like, so for example, if there hadn't been the QR system, people with power, people who with connections could have enjoyed.
But the QR is absolutely brilliant, because it allowed them to manage their limited resources.
Yes. So my answer to you is that quite a lot of masses have rallied around President Wickremesinghe, not purely because he's a UN a statesman with a track record, but mainly on the fact that he was the person, and he is the person. He will be the person who will ensure that majority of the Sri Lankans will be able to enjoy a decent life. I know there are issues of cost of living. Some people have to bear a hands-to-mouth living, but they still have an hope that the country's economy will be secured and will be uplifted.
Whilst you were saying all that, I was thinking about the people who have no access to 3 meals a day. When I was near Madampe, I asked somebody, so where's home? And he said, here, on the road. And I saw that he was selling, maybe he had about a dozen durian fruits, and maybe about 5 or 6 kilos of mangosteen, and a few other things there. Even if he had sold them all, I don't think that he'd make enough money to sustain himself, his wife, and 2 children. So the frustration is palpable. It was there to see. The problem, if you like, is that Ranil Wickremesinghe says it the way he sees it. Do you wish that there was a better way for him to do that? Well, because he tells you, look, this is it. I'm not giving you sweets because I haven't got sugar to give you sweets.
Yeah, I think one of the key factors or key strengths of Mr. Wickremesinghe is that he has come out with raw truth. He never lied to people. He never wanted to dish out the so-called freebies or promise things that he cannot do, or promise things that would benefit a segment and affect another segment of the nation. So he is quite aware of the people below the poverty line, which is due to various reasons, and we are quite aware of that fact. That is why even under the IMF program, you would agree with me, we have a system, we have a scheme to protect the people under the poverty line, people who are on the
most
periphery.
vulnerable.
But that is also being looked through. That's also being condemned, due to political wishes or political.
How do you think the people at your level, in your electorate, if you like, how have they taken to this business about converting their licenses to title deeds?
Well, see, I mean, the land matters is one of the one of the major topics in all manifestos if you go back to past 30-40 years, because majority of people, you know, in the provinces live on lands for which they don't have a deed, or which is, especially in Kandy, there's a system called the Devala Idam, like, you know, lands given by the king, and they're paying a kind of a levy. So these people are deprived of possessing their lands, despite them living for 40-30 years. And I think this is one of the noble initiatives by President Wickremesinghe, which other leaders couldn't do. Because when you have people without lands, every manifesto you can promise lands and you can gather elections. But he never wanted to do that. He was very, very, very honest, because once I spoke to him and he said that was a plan he had when he became a young minister way back in 80s. And he said, had I given an opportunity 30-40 years ago, I wouldn't have waited this long. Luckily, we could, this country.
Do you think his upfront and open talk about, you know, I'm not making any false promises, but I'm telling you that's is promising, and maybe Mr. Rajapaksa?
Well, in all his commitments, all his statements, Mr. Wickremesinghe, President, has promised, or has said, or has made statements, if we only can do it. Our main basis, the premises, is the fact that we say things that we can do within our limits. We have a twin deficit, so we need to address all other matters while keeping an eye on this twin deficit and finding measures to solve the twin deficit. But all other candidates are ignorant of this fact, so they're just saying, I can do this, I can do that, but I know, or rather the majority of the people are now quite aware that they can't do anything other than promising things that this country can't offer, can't deliver to the people.
An auction of non-existent resources is what Lee Kuan Yew said about Sri Lanka's politics some years ago. Mahesh Senanayake, thank you very much for being on The Turning Point. We've much enjoyed having you here. And that's the way it was on The Turning Point. Take care and bless you all.
සුසිනිද සමක් විෂබීජවලින් ආරක්ෂාවක් සහ නැවුම් සුවඳක් ඩෙටෝල් ස්කින් කෙයාර්.
එහෙම ලොකු ලයින් නම් නෑ. ඉතින් මේක ඇස්සෙන් තමයි තියෙන්නේ. පීලිං එක තමයි මේ වැඩේ යන්නේ. පීලිං